Hey, welcome back to TEC Tube. I'm Vince Sylvester along with Ryan Hoger. Today we're going to talk about a huge pain point for many people, and that's where to find your AHRI certificates.
That's right, Vince. There's a lot of places you can go to get those certificates, manufacturers' websites and things like that. But what we're going to do today is we're going to use the AHRI Directory website because that's what the utilities and those other authorities use. So if we can find it there, they can find it there, and you can get your rebate and your tax money.
This video is long overdue, so let's get started.
We're going to start by going to the AHRI Directory website, which I already have pulled up here. It's ahridirectory.org. There's lots of stuff on this directory, and you can search for lots of products by manufacturer or type. There's residential air conditioners, like we're going to look at today, furnaces, boilers, rooftop units, variable refrigerant flow, water heaters, all those kind of products you can search by manufacturer, by efficiency, by model number, whatever you happen to know. Most of them are pretty easy and pretty straightforward. However, we're going to start with residential air conditioners, which is by far the most complex because that is never a single widget. There's always three pieces involved. There's the air conditioner, the evaporator coil, and the furnace blower system. So with those three different things being involved in the rating, you have combination ratings that add up to hundreds of thousands of combinations per manufacturer. So it can be quite daunting. That's why we're going to look at that today. So for today's purposes, we're going to click on the first one under residential. And by the way, residential and commercial doesn't always mean house building. It means the type of equipment that it is. So sometimes a residential system goes in a commercial building or vice versa. So it really is more based on the equipment rating standard versus what kind of project you have. We're going to click on residential air conditioners. So it brings up this screen. There's lots of fields on here. One of the things to know about these fields is that it's a less is more type situation. If I fill out all of these fields on the screen, I promise you it's going to return no answers to you. So you're better off filling out one thing, hitting submit, seeing what kind of results you have. If there's too many results to look through, go back, fill out a second field, and kind of work your way through it like that. You'll get much better results that way. The other thing to pay attention to is down in the bottom right-hand corner here, you have to enter this code. In our case, it's going to be CHG67G. When you first use the site, it's going to ask you to enter that just to prove that you're an actual person, basically. And every once in a while, it may ask you to do it again if it times out. But you got to fill that in or you're not going to get anything either. So we'll go through some of these fields and look at them. The first one is the AHRI certificate. If you happen to know that certificate number, great, you can fill it in here and see the answer. However, if you know the certificate number, you're probably not going to come to this website because you already have a certificate in your hand. That is more used by utilities and other folks like that to verify ratings. There's lots of places to get ratings too, not just this website. The manufacturers all have sites. For example, if I pull up the Carrier site, it looks like this. Bryant has one, Payne, Day and Night, Heil. Everybody's got a site like that where you can search for different ratings on there. The problem with those sites is that they're not perfectly in sync with AHRI, and the utilities are going to use AHRI to prove it. So in my opinion, you might as well go right to the AHRI website and start right there. The type, right, you have to know what all these specific codes mean to make any use of that, and that's just for different types of systems. Hardly anybody uses that, so I wouldn't even focus on that. The system manufacturer, this is where it lists all the different manufacturers. Every once in a while, someone will be listed twice. For example, Carrier and Bryant list twice. Usually the first one is the main residential one. The second one is usually more niche commercial things. You only have a couple hundred things in there versus hundreds of thousands. For example, if I click on the second Carrier Corp and hit search, and I got to type my code in because it timed out, 9E4T. Right, I come down here, there's only 106 ratings, which is not very much, but you can see they're basically small package rooftop units under 5 tons. If I go back and I pick the other Carrier and hit search, now you'll see that that Carrier, the residential Carrier, has 208,000 combinations. That's 250,000 basically for you guys that are really good at the math, right? So you can use those to search. If I want to look at that and say, well, how many of Carrier's systems get a 16 SEER, 13 EER tax credit? I can fill out those three fields: Carrier, 16 SEER, 16 SEER minimum, 13 EER minimum, and hit search. I can say, well, Carrier has 64,000 combinations that would meet a tax credit type system, right? So I'm going to go back. I'm not going to use those fields right now. We'll just kind of keep plodding along. So that's when you use the manufacturer. I'm going to leave it blank for now. The indoor unit model, that's your evaporator coil, right? So that's the coil above your air conditioner or furnace. The outdoor unit model is your condensing unit outside, and then your furnace model number is your indoor blower. You don't necessarily have to have a furnace to get a rating. You have to have a condensing unit, you have to have an evaporator. The furnace would be optional, and typically you're only going to find a furnace rating if the furnace has an ECM motor in here. That ECM motor will make the SEER be higher, so you'll get a rating. If it's a regular PSC blower motor, they don't even bother rating it with that furnace. So then you'd be looking for a rating that has a condensing unit, an evaporator, and a blank where the furnace would have been. By the way, it's really hard to get to 16 SEER without an ECM motor in the furnace. Really hard. Like, you shouldn't bother trying to do that. It'd be pretty niche. So that's the indoor unit model. You can search by BTU capacities, right, for cooling in this case. I can put a minimum or maximum BTU in there. That's a little bit harder because sometimes a 35,000 BTU unit will be listed by the manufacturer as a 3-ton. But if I come in here and I put 36,000, well, guess what? I'm not going to find that 35,200 BTU unit, which is really basically 3 tons. So I wouldn't use those fields very often either. The manufacturer type can be very useful. There are 3 types. There is a systems, which means I want a evaporator coil and a condensing unit from the same manufacturer. I want them both to be from Bryant, for example, or whomever. There's the coil mix and match. That means maybe I want an ADP coil with a Bryant air conditioner. Or there's the systems and mix and match, which gives me both of those at the same time. So I can use that. The export stuff doesn't really apply to us. Eligible for federal tax credit. If I just click yes on that, and let's say I went back to that same carrier example I had, right, and click search, that's basically the same as me putting in 16 SEER minimum, 13 ER maximum. I get the same, whatever, 65,000 combinations, right? So I can do that if I want to look for tax credit systems. On the right-hand side, model status, active, discontinued, obsolete. For the purpose of tax credits and utility rebates, that doesn't really matter, but active is a current product. If I get to some of these other categories, discontinued and obsolete, those are things that are being phased out by that manufacturer, and eventually they won't show up in this directory. This directory is only for things that are relatively current. We could talk later about the process for getting certificates for systems that are not current if you would need them. Outdoor unit model, that's my condensing unit model number. I could also pick my condensing unit by trade name, right? So I can come back down here and pick certain things, like if I was going to do a day and night unit, boom, I could pick that off of the list. Same thing for indoor unit, which would be the furnace. Then there's the furnace model number if I'm choosing to use it in this case. If I have commercial stuff, I can have it look for single or 3-phase or both, right? And then if I'm in certain parts of the country, in the south, I may care more about this category. Up here in the north, I don't really care because we're allowed to do everything up here for air conditioning, so no big deal. So most of these fields you're not actually going to use. You're going to use a pretty minimal amount. So let's say right now I want to get the rating for a Carrier 16 SEER air conditioner. The first thing I would do is I would come over to the outdoor unit model number, leave everything else blank, right? Come over to the outdoor unit model number, and I would put in 24, let me look at my notes, ABC6, ABC6. So that is one of the Carrier 16 SEER models. If I click search, it tells me that I got 15,000 combos. That's too many for me to scroll through 20 at a time, so I'm not going to do that, obviously. The next thing I could do is I could build the model number out a little more and pick a tonnage. So 3-ton, I happen to know for Carrier is a 36. If I was to hit search, 2,800. Okay, I'm getting a little closer. Now I need a coil. The coils are kind of weird. So I got mine listed in my saved favorites here, so I'm going to pick one of those like that. So a lot of the Carrier coils that we'd use on a vertical system would be a CNPVP. Now in this case you see on my screen it's a CNPV star. Star is a character holder used in the AHRI directory. It means any number, any letter, and any number you want to put in there would be valid. However, the way this directory works is if I put in CNPVP like the real model number is, and I hit search, I'm going to get no answers. It says there's nothing available. So I have to magically know in my head that that's where the star goes. That's when this directory gets a little bit hard to use. If I hit the star, boom, now all of a sudden I got 500 combos. If I'm not sure on something, I could put in a little bit and see what happens, CN, and then come over here and say, oh, I see what they do. They do CNPH or CNPV, and then they use a star. Okay, I get how this manufacturer works now, and I can go ahead and use their nomenclature. So I got a 3-ton air conditioner with a 3-ton coil. I hit search. 98 combinations. Now I'm getting a little bit more manageable. Now I got to think about what kind of furnace do I have, right? Nowadays, a lot of them are condensing furnaces. I happen to know all the carrier condensing furnaces are 59 series, non-condensing are 58. So I'm going to pick a 59, hit search. Now I'm down to 51 combinations. And I can look over here in the furnace column and see how Carrier chooses to do their ratings. They do 59 stars sometimes, or they do 59 letter sometimes, depending on the way that particular one was rated. So it's a little bit challenging there. Right, so depending on what I'm looking for, most of them are going to be a star. But let's say I have this paired up with a Performance Series unit. It's going to be a 59 star P. Hit search. Now I'm down to 36 combos. Right, now depending on the BTUs in my furnace, I can look at this page or the next page and get my answers. So really, I only filled out 3 things: outdoor, indoor, and furnace, and I only filled out part of it. Right, I didn't even fill out the full model number for the 3 because I don't really know how every manufacturer does it. Right, if I come and look on here, one of these times Carrier might have it listed as star 030 at the end. The next time it's star 030 at the end. Right, it just depends on what year these things ended up getting rated and tested and stuff like that. They might have had a different mechanism for doing it. But I can look at these combinations and look down the right-hand column and see what the SEER rating is and the EER and choose one that might get me the rebate that I want. So in this case, if I was going for a ComEd rebate, I need to have 15 SEER. I got lots of choices of 15 SEER units here. I just got to find my air conditioner with my evaporator and with my furnace model, right? And these were all 36 coils, but I also know that there's the super coil, which would be a 37. If I did that, I'm probably going to get more ratings that are going to be higher. So now I'm getting ones that are 16, 15.5, 16, a little bit higher ratings in that regard. So all I have to really do here is find a system that I want. And let's say in this case I want an active system. I want to make sure I get at least 15 SEER so I can get my customer rebate. So I need, well, depending on what furnace I had, obviously it would be, based on the load. But then I would look over and see if I got the air conditioner, the evaporator. Let's say I had an 80,000 BTU furnace. I would come over here on the left-hand side and I would double click on the AHRI number, and that would bring up my certificate for me. All right, so I can take my certificate and then I can print that off for my customer and whatever they needed at that point, email it to them, give it to them on paper, so forth. Now sometimes the AHRI Directory website is not the most useful. Specifically, it's very hard to find combinations that don't have a furnace listed because you can't search for a blank. And it's also challenging to find things that no longer are listed in the directory, but you might still want to find them. So there's a couple of different solutions to that. One of those solutions is to go into the manufacturer's websites. So for example, here's the Carrier one, Bryant, Payne, Day Night, Heil, some different ones we got pulled up here. And down below are the actual links you can use to get to those down below this video. We'll use the Carrier one since that's the one we were on before. So in this case, I'm going to look at the one for residential splits. And I'm going to go to the full list and not use their search feature. That full list will then give me the ability to export to an Excel file. Now I already did that and I exported the Excel file already. So here's an Excel file, and as you can see there's just thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of combinations, all the same ones that would be in the directory, plus often some of the older archive ones are on here for a little while. And then I personally usually save those for quite some time so I can go back and look at stuff 3, 4, 5 years ago if I want to. A couple tips with the spreadsheet here. The first thing is to click somewhere on this very top bar and then go to the data button and then filter, and all these little filters drop down right here, and then click one below that and go to view, freeze panes, and if I freeze the panes, now when I scroll with my mouse, the top row with all the subject titles, all the headers is still there for me so I can still see those. But now what I can do is I can look at any one of these. Let's say I want to go to, what was the unit we looked up before? It was a, remind me, 24ABC6, right? So I can come over here, deselect all, and then I can pick 24ABC6 3-ton, right? And now I only get those combinations. Then I can do the same thing on the coil, and I can search for the coil. What do we have? We had a CNPV 3621, so those different ones there, right? And now my list is much more manageable. I'm down to whatever, 50 of these things. But I can look and see that there's some here that don't have a furnace listed at all. That means that this combination of this condensing unit and this evaporator coil with any furnace from any manufacturer in the whole wide world would get this particular rating, in this case 14 SEER, right? So I can look at some of those ones that don't have a furnace associated with them and see what they hit, right? So I could find the blank spots, if you will. I could also even search under the furnace and scroll down to the bottom of the list and just only pick blanks. So now that condensing unit with that evaporator coil combinations with no furnace listed, right? I can also see AHRI numbers on things that have been previously archived or discontinued, and then I can go ahead and get certificates from that. So that brings us to our very last point. From the AHRI website, once it's off the directory, it's off forever. It's not possible to get a certificate unless someone printed that exact certificate in the past. However, what you can do is come down to the bottom here and click Contact Us, then click the support link here, fill out your name and phone number and all that kinds of stuff, and then from down on the drop-down box here, say that you're a contractor or installer, and what would you like to do? I would like to get a letter of confirmation for archive ratings. And then I can ask for what I want. I want a split system, and then I can put in the details of what I want. Specifically, you need the AHRI number, which you would get from this spreadsheet. I take this old number that I got from the old spreadsheet, I punch that in along with some of the basic information and hit submit, and then AHRI would send me a letter saying, hey, back on this date, this was a listed product, it was rated for this SEER and this BTU capacity, but it's no longer in the directory. So you can't get a certificate, but you can get a letter that says all the same things the certificate used to say, and the utilities such as ComEd will accept that certificate.
Ryan, again, thank you so much for this great episode. Please don't underestimate the value of having this certificate when you're at a homeowner's.
Yeah, Vince, not only does it show to the customer that you actually installed what you promised you're going to install, but they can use those same certificates to help get utility rebates, tax credit money, and other incentives like that.
So I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Thanks.